Dealerships are closing one by one. The shift to direct-to-consumer sales and cheaper imports is wiping out an entire ecosystem. The auto industry isn't just changing, it's being rebuilt from scratch.
This is the new invasion, not with weapons, but with wheels. Every ship that arrives here carries thousands of electric cars from China, each one cheaper, smarter, and faster to produce than anything made in Europe. Tariffs won't stop this tsunami.
BYD just overtook Tesla in global EV sales. A Chinese electric car now costs less than half the price of a Tesla Model 3. And if you think tariffs will stop this tsunami, well, you're about to be very, very wrong. See, what's happening right now in the automotive industry is the exact same playbook that destroyed Nokia, crushed BlackBerry, and turned Samsung into the world's biggest smartphone maker. The Chinese have done this before. They perfected it with smartphones in the 2010s. And now they're doing it again with cars. Western automakers are terrified. Dealerships are panicking. And politicians, well, they're scrambling to build tariff walls that simply won't work. Because here's the thing, this isn't about technology anymore. This is about price. And when it comes to price, the Chinese have already won. So before we dive deep into this automotive revolution, hit that like button and subscribe. Because what I'm about to show you will completely change how you think about your next car purchase. Trust me, you'll want to see this. All right, let's get into it. Remember 2010? If you wanted a premium smartphone, you had exactly two choices, iPhone or BlackBerry. Nokia still dominated globally. Samsung was seen as the cheap alternative. And Chinese brands? Nobody even knew their names. Then something happened. Xiaomi launched in 2010. Huawei started pushing globally in 2012. Oppo and Vivo followed close behind. And within just 5 years, the entire smartphone industry was completely upended. Here's how they did it. The Chinese manufacturers realized something that Western companies had forgotten. Most people don't need the absolute best technology. They need good enough technology at a price they can actually afford. So Xiaomi took a flagship Qualcomm processor, the exact same one Samsung used, put it in a well-designed phone, cut out the massive marketing budgets, sold it online directly to consumers, and charged half. The Xiaomi Mi 2 in 2012 cost $310. The Samsung Galaxy S3 at the same time, $600. Same processor, same screen quality, similar camera, half the price. And consumers aren't stupid. They did the math. Within 3 years, Chinese brands went from 5% of global smartphone sales to 40%. By 2020, they controlled over 50% of the entire market. Nokia collapsed. BlackBerry died. Even Apple had to slash prices in China just to stay relevant. And Samsung? Well, they survived, but only by moving manufacturing to Vietnam and slashing their own prices by 30%. Now, here's where it gets interesting. That exact same pattern is happening right now in the automotive industry. Same strategy, same execution, and it's going to have the same result. Let's talk about BYD. Most people in the West had never heard of them until 2023. But in China, BYD has been building batteries since 1995 and cars since 2003. They supply batteries to Tesla, Apple, and Warren Buffett invested $230 million into them back in 2008. So they're not some fly-by-night operation. They're a vertically integrated manufacturing giant that controls everything from lithium mining to semiconductor production to final assembly. And now they're coming for the global market. In 2023, BYD sold 3.02 million vehicles. That's more than Tesla's 1.8 million. In the first quarter of 2024, BYD became the world's largest EV manufacturer, and they're not slowing down. But here's what really matters, the price. The BYD Dolphin in the UK costs $18,195. That's roughly $24,000. It's a compact hatchback with 265 miles of range, decent acceleration, and a surprisingly good interior. Now compare that to the Tesla Model 3, which starts at $39,999. That's $50,000, more than double the price. Or look at the Volkswagen ID.3, which costs $36,000. The Renault Megane E-Tech, $35,000. The Peugeot E208, $31,000. Every single European EV costs at least 50% more than the BYD Dolphin. And in many cases, the BYD actually has better specs. The BYD Seal, their mid-size sedan, costs $45,000, and the Tesla Model 3 long range, $49,990. The BMW i4, $63,000. The Mercedes EQE, $69,000. Same size, similar range. Better build quality in some cases, and thousands of pounds cheaper. This is the Walmart effect in action. When you can offer similar quality at significantly lower prices, market share follows automatically. If you want to see the future of the global auto market, look at Singapore. It's a wealthy, developed nation with high standards, strict regulations, and consumers who can afford any car they want. And BYD is absolutely dominating. In 2023, BYD sold more than Hyundai, more than BMW. They became the third best-selling brand overall behind only Tesla and Mercedes. Now let's be clear. Singapore is a small market. Only about 80,000 new cars are registered each year because of the insanely expensive Certificate of Entitlement system. But that's exactly why this matters. Singaporean buyers aren't making impulse purchases. They're spending $100,000 or more on a car when you include the COE. They're educated, tech-savvy, and doing serious research before buying. And they're choosing BYD, not because it's cheap, but because it's good value. The BYD Auto 3 SUV is the second best-selling vehicle in Singapore in 2024. In Thailand, BYD is the #1 EV brand. In Indonesia, they're building a $1.3 billion factory. In the Philippines, they've already opened 14 dealerships. This is a coordinated global expansion using the exact same strategy that Chinese smartphone brands used. Enter a market, undercut local prices by 30 to 40%, build brand recognition, then slowly move upmarket. Here's why Western automakers are in serious trouble. They don't control their supply chains anymore. Tesla buys batteries from Panasonic and CATL. They buy semiconductors from TSMC and Samsung. They outsource seat production, electronics, and dozens of other components. Volkswagen? Same story. BMW? Same story. Ford, GM, Stellantis. They're all assemblers now, not true manufacturers. BYD is different. They make their own batteries, they produce their own semiconductors, they manufacture electric motors, control systems, and even the steel for the chassis. They control everything. This is exactly what Apple does with iPhones. Vertical integration means you control costs, quality, and production timelines. You don't get held hostage by suppliers. You don't have to negotiate prices. You simply build it yourself. And that translates directly into lower prices for consumers. Industry analysts estimate that BYD's manufacturing costs are 30 to 35% lower than Tesla's. That's not because of cheap labor. Chinese factory workers now earn comparable wages to Eastern European workers. It's because of efficiency, scale, and vertical integration. When you control the entire supply chain, you eliminate middleman profits at every stage, and that saving goes straight to the consumer. Now, Western governments see this coming. The European Union just imposed tariffs of up to 45% on Chinese EVs. The United States has a 27.5% tariff. Canada announced 100% tariffs in 2024. Politicians are calling it protecting domestic industry. But here's the truth. It won't work, and the Chinese know it. Because they've already seen this movie. When the US imposed tariffs on Chinese smartphones, Huawei and Xiaomi simply built factories in India. When Europe restricted Chinese solar panels, they partnered with Turkish and Moroccan manufacturers. The tariff playbook doesn't work against Chinese manufacturers because they're willing to do something Western companies won't: move production overseas. BYD is already building a factory in Hungary. It's investing $1 billion in a Brazilian plant. They're in talks for facilities in Mexico, Thailand, and Indonesia. And here's the brilliant part. Once those factories are operational, the cars are no longer Chinese imports. They're Hungarian EVs, Brazilian EV, Mexican EV. The tariffs vanish. The price advantage remains. This is exactly what Toyota did in the 1980s when the US imposed import restrictions on Japanese cars. Toyota built factories in Kentucky and Indiana. Honda built in Ohio, Nissan in Tennessee. And within a decade, Japanese cars became American cars built by Japanese companies. The restrictions failed. The market share shifted permanently. The Chinese are doing the exact same thing, except faster and with more money. Western automakers keep saying they're ahead on technology. They're investing billions in R&D. They've got decades of engineering experience. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That advantage has already evaporated. BYD's Blade battery is considered one of the safest lithium iron phosphate batteries in the world. Their e-Platform 3.0 is as advanced as anything Tesla offers. The Han EV sedan does 0 to 60 mph in 3.9 seconds, faster than most European sports cars. Chinese EVs now have advanced driver assistance systems, over-the-air updates, voice control, and infotainment systems that rival or exceed Western competitors. And they're doing it at half the price. The quality gap that existed in 2015, it's gone. Independent reviewers are consistently surprised by the build quality of BYD, Neo, and Xpeng vehicles. Panel gaps are tight. Materials are premium. Reliability data from early adopters is actually quite good. This is what happened with smartphones. In 2012, Chinese phones felt cheap. By 2016, they were indistinguishable from Samsung. By 2020, Huawei was arguably making better hardware than Apple. The same learning curve is happening with cars, and it's happening even faster because the Chinese manufacturers have more money, more engineers, and more government support than smartphone makers ever did. Behind closed doors, Western automakers are terrified, and you can see it in their actions. Volkswagen just announced they're closing factories in Germany for the first time in their 87-year history. Stellantis is shutting down 15 plants across Europe. Ford has abandoned the European passenger car market almost entirely. Tesla slashed prices 6 times in 2023 and another 4 times in 2024. Elon Musk himself admitted that Chinese automakers are the most competitive in the world. and that without trade barriers, they will pretty much demolish most other car companies. Think about that for a second. The CEO of Tesla, the company that revolutionized EVs, is saying Chinese manufacturers are better. GM just wrote off $5 billion in China losses and is considering pulling out entirely. Nissan's European sales dropped 27% in 2024. Honda and Mazda are discussing a merger just to survive. This isn't normal market competition. This is an extinction-level event for companies that don't adapt fast enough. And here's the thing, most of them can't adapt. They're locked into union contracts, pension obligations, legacy dealership networks, and cost structures that simply can't compete with Chinese efficiency. Toyota's operating margin is around 9%. B is 13%. That might not sound like much, but in an industry with razor-thin margins, that 4% difference is the gap between profit and bankruptcy. Here's something most people aren't considering. Chinese EV brands don't use traditional. BYD, NIO, and XPeng all sell direct to consumers. You configure your car online, pay a deposit, and it gets delivered to your home. No dealership markup, no haggling, no sales pressure. Sound familiar? It's the Tesla model. And it's the same model Chinese smartphone brands used. But here's the problem for Western markets. There are hundreds of thousands of people employed in car dealerships across Europe and North America, and those jobs are about to vanish. In the UK alone, there are over 5,000 franchised car dealerships employing roughly 180,000 people. In the US, it's 18,000 dealerships and over 1 million employees. If Chinese brands capture even 25% of the market while selling direct, that's potentially 250,000 jobs gone in the US alone. And it gets worse. Those dealerships also handle service, repairs, and parts. But Chinese EVs require 60% less maintenance than traditional cars. No oil changes, no transmission service, fewer brake jobs because of regenerative braking. So even the service revenue disappears. This is the hidden economic catastrophe nobody's preparing for. Politicians talk about protecting manufacturing jobs, but the dealership network employs far more people than the factories do. And when those dealerships close, small towns lose tax revenue, commercial real estate collapses, and entire local economies can crater. Sucks to you right what happens next. The 3 scenarios. So where does this go? Based on the smartphone precedent and current market trends, there are 3 possible scenarios. Chinese brands capture 40 to 50% of global EV market share by 2030. BYD becomes the world's largest automaker. Western brands either collapse or get acquired. Dealerships shut down en masse. Millions of jobs disappear. Local production in Hungary and Brazil means tariffs are useless. This is the most likely scenario based purely on economics. When one product is half the price and similar quality, consumers vote with their wallets. Scenario 2, the merger mania. Faced with extinction, Western automakers merge aggressively. Volkswagen absorbs Stellantis. Ford and GM combine. Nissan, Honda, and Mazda become one company. These megacorporations slash costs, close factories, and try to match Chinese prices through scale. Some survive, most don't. But the landscape is permanently changed with maybe 5 or 6 global automakers instead of 20. A Western automaker develops genuinely revolutionary technology. Solid-state batteries, 500-mile range at $20,000, or autonomous driving that actually works and regains competitive advantage. This is the least likely scenario. It requires a breakthrough that's been 5 years away for the last 15 years. And even if it happens, the Chinese will reverse engineer it within 2 years. My prediction? We get a combination of scenarios 1 and 2. Chinese dominance with a few Western survivors that exist through mergers and massive downsizing. If you're in the market for a car right now, you're facing a fascinating dilemma. Do you buy a legacy brand knowing it might not exist in 5 years? What happens to your warranty, your resale value? Or do you take a chance on a Chinese EV with an uncertain service network and unknown long-term reliability? Here's my take. If you're buying new and planning to keep it for 10 years, stick with Toyota, Honda, or Tesla. They're most likely to survive. If you're leasing or planning to trade in after 3 years, the Chinese EVs are incredible value. You'll save thousands up front, and the depreciation risk is minimal on a short-term lease. And if you work in the auto industry, manufacturing, dealerships, suppliers, I'd be diversifying your skills right now. The restructuring is coming fast, and it won't be gentle. This isn't about nationalism. It's not about politics. It's about basic economics. The Chinese figured out how to build good cars cheaply. They've done it before with other industries. And history shows that once they perfect the formula, they're nearly impossible to stop. Tariffs didn't save Nokia. Trade restrictions didn't save BlackBerry. And protectionism won't save Volkswagen or GM. The smartphone revolution took about 8 years from Chinese entry to market dominance. The car revolution will probably take 10 to 12 years because cars are more complex and regulations are stricter. But make no mistake, it's happening. The only question is how many Western automakers survive the transition. So what do you think? Are you ready to buy a Chinese EV, or do you think the legacy brands will find a way to compete? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe because this industry is changing fast, and you'll want to stay informed as these dominoes continue to fall. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.